Social Perspectives is brought to you by Everett and Kennings.
What's up, world? Welcome to Social Perspectives. I'm J. Gentile Everett. The world is changing, and it's really changing in our religious community. Does same-sex marriages among the leadership of our churches have any impact on the mission of that ecclesiastical body? What about pastors in same-sex marriages adopting children and rearing them together? We are not qualified to assert any psychological conclusion, but we can examine the social and spiritual impact this can have on our church. This, among other things, we'll try to unpack in this show. So stay tuned, stay alert. We'll be right back. Welcome to our first segment. We have with us again the Reverend Pastor Darrell B.J. Gibson Jr. and Commissioner of Scotland County. Thank you for being here with us again.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
Always glad to have him. And we're going to get right to it because I'm sure he has a lot of things he would like to share with us. The first thing I want to say to you, Reverend, is the early church was a countercultural organism, which simply is they did not decide that they were going to embrace a social understanding of the world. They had decided we're going to be Christian. And if that goes counter to the social interaction and engagement, so be it. That's what we are. Have we lost that?
Have we lost that? I don't think that we have. However, I think that in embracing what we started out as a foundation of has grown, and there is certainly much more a social perspective to our Christendom than what was in the beginning of the early church.
Okay, well, see, then what do we do? What have we become? Have we decided that we're going to reinterpret the church in light of the social landscape and say, okay, we're going to take the church now, we're going to make the church fit into our social consciousness instead of deciding that we're just going to stand alone and be a counter-cultural organism?
I do. I think that what we have done is decided that we're going to take the church and fit it in the scope of a number of things as relates to our education community, political community, and social perspectives. I think we've changed church because, as you shared, in the early church, the focus was being a Christian.
That's right.
There was no concern about political
That's right.
concerns or things that were happening in the community or social injustices. None of those things mattered. It was all about being a Christian. But now that has changed drastically.
And with that change, what has it done to our church? Has the church become more involved and more interested in what is socially acceptable, what the Supreme Court may pass as a law? Has the church decided what we're going to do is look at all of the things that happen in politics, law, and the like, and we're going to now bring that into our world and say, church, for you to exist, we need you to exist within our social context. And if you can't do that, we don't have any use for you.
I would unfortunately have to agree that I think that is the case. I think that sometimes, and as pastors, because we are the driving force of the church, we have to be careful not to allow the work of the church to be extended too far from the foundational purpose that we lose our core. For example, I think we do have a calling to social justice. We have a calling to political concerns. We have a calling to the social ills of our communities. But we can't get so involved in those things that we lose the foundation of what church really is.
Well, I understand that the church needs to be involved in community affairs, community activities, things that's going to affect the lives of people. But have we gone so far that there's no line, there's no lines of demarcation? We just kind of gone out there and we've said, okay, our church is going to tolerate same-sex marriage. We're going to tolerate pastors with same-sex relationships. We're going to tolerate same-sex marriages, adopting children. My question is there a line? Is there going to ever be a line?
You know, somehow I knew that as your questions were building upon each other, they were headed somewhere. You know, I think, Dr. Everett, that we are in a very uncharted territories.
Okay.
And in all honesty, I'm just going to be honest, I think that if we are not careful about where the church is headed, the church that you've described is where we will be.
Okay.
I think that we have lessened our standards. We have softened up the gospel, and we're not as. And of course, it's come with time. In your days, you know, the church preached hell, fire, and brimstone.
Yes.
And as you've come along, you've tried to soften that message to share with people that yes, you know, Christ wants us to live with order, and he wants us to, but he loves us, you know.
Sure.
Well, as I've come along, that message has gotten even softer. And as I shared in the last conversation that we shared, in those generations coming behind me that are now rising up, that message has been distorted.
Well, see, my issue with it is simply this. I recognize all theology is basically dispensational, and this is something that I even taught. And what that means is theology is going to evolve. Our understanding of God is going to evolve. No doubt about that. But the evolution of our understanding about God was never designed to change him. That's where I am. Okay, so what we think a little bit more deeply about this versus that. But do we want to get to the place where we actually change the character and nature of God because of our distorted reinterpretations of it?
Well, Dr. Everett, when you refer to the heart of our conversation, and that is the role that same-sex marriage is taking in our churches, those who are involved in same-sex relationships and marriages serve the same God that you and I serve.
Right.
They have no desire to change that God. They are under the understanding that the same God who you worship is the same God who they worship, which I think is what causes there to be some misunderstanding in the fact that those who are traditionalists think these folk have lost their minds.
Yes.
And those who are under the understanding and the persuasion of which they are as it relates to their relationship, they think otherwise.
You see, that's where I am trying to get to, because I think we're going to ultimately lose our understanding of who God actually is if we keep contorting and we keep stretching him and we keep on saying, okay, God is not this, God is this too, and then God is that. When do we reach at a place where we distort him completely away from himself? I guess that's the situation.
But I think, Doc, here's the thing. Do we put God in a box and say God can only be this?
Okay.
Or do we allow God to be God?
Oh, wow. Thank you for that. Y'all, we got to take a break. Y'all, hold on. We got to take a break. Y'all got to come back because we got to tackle what the great Reverend just presented to us. We'll be right back.
Hunger has never been more satisfied as it is when it tastes like the delicious Southern cuisines from the Clinton Inn. Here, flavor is never compromised and palate satisfaction always meets the expectation. The weekly buffet features all of the special dishes to which we have grown accustomed. Come dine with us on Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and Sundays starting at 11 a.m. and enjoy a scrumptious meal at the Clinton Inn in Laurinburg, North Carolina, where food has never tasted so good.
Welcome back to Social Perspectives. We're here again with the great Reverend Darrell B.J. Gibson. We got to start on something he said. He talked about keeping God in a box. So I want you to go and tell us that again. So now when I get ready to say something, that I am clear about what you said about God in this box. Please, go ahead, Reverend.
So what I'm asking you is, your concern is that as things are changing, the times are changing.
Right.
It appears that we are stretching God, making God to be something that he may not have been intended to be.
Okay.
And my question was, so do we want to keep God in a box and say God is only A, B, C, and D? And if there's a concern or need for God to be E, F, and G, that can't happen because this is the box.
Okay, I'm so.
And who determines that box?
Okay, I'm just so glad. Thank you.
And I don't know how I'm forgetting that this is your show.
No, go ahead. No, you're doing fine. No, it's fine. I'm glad you asked the question. Here's the thing. You're right about one thing. God should not be kept in a box. No, that is intellectually and theologically irresponsible to try to put God in a box. There is a however. It's like you. Your name is Reverend Darrell B.J. Gibson, Jr. You have an identity. See, there's certain things about you that make you who you are. So we can't just all of a sudden take Reverend Darrell B.J. Gibson, Jr. and just put him all over the place. Put him, oh, he's this or he's that. No, there's an identification that's associated with you. So God has to be identified.
Okay.
We can't just throw him out and say, okay, God is an ontological triune. And I want everybody to understand an ontological triune simply is no one can judge him. No one outside of him can be him. He can be whatever he chooses to be. That's true. But having said that, God has never given up an identity. In the Old Testament, he had an identity. In the New Testament, he had an identity. There were things that Jesus would say about himself. So I'm just saying, I don't want the church to lose the total identity of God. Don't get to the place where God is no longer recognized and he can just be any and everything all the time to every single person, saved, sinner, whatever you are. God can just be all of these things. One of the things that I really admire about God, God speaks in riddles. Look at the parables. He uses a lot of riddles. And the reason why Jesus spoke parabolically so much, a parable has two purposes. It is designed to enlighten the one for whom it is intended and to lock out one for whom it is not. So that's the only thing when I was talking about, do we want to just lose sight of the attributes of God? That's all.
Yes, sir. And I'm with you. I understand, as I was taught, you were taught, straight is the way and narrow is the gate.
Yeah.
And I am in no ways trying to suggest that we should make that way much more narrower than God has already made.
Sure. Right.
No, I think we should. Yeah. But I also say that, and I understand the context of our conversation is concerned about the role or the impact of same-sex marriages. But I also go back to the fact that I think sometimes the church does not give those who are in same-sex marriages the same benefit or grace that we give to those who are in traditional relationships but having affairs.
I understand.
Or considering themselves Christians, but they are practicing other behaviors.
Yes.
They drink, they smoke, they gamble, or whatever. I think sometimes we don't give those who are of
I get you.
the same handshake.
I give you that. Now that my problem, and I have said at the beginning, why church people, pastors, pew occupiers, they kill me too much always bashing the same-sex marriage. and they leave all the other sin.
Everybody else is left alone.
That's my issue with that.
Yeah.
I've always thought that was bad. And I'm just saying, if you look at the Bible teaches us about relationships. It does. It teaches us about love and all of those things. Now, if you interpret same-sex relationships as sinful, okay. Well, then gossip is too. And gluttony is too. And greed is too. So don't take the gay life and say, okay, we're going to put this in this basket. This is the pariah. This is the theological pariah. This is the worst of the worst. And then all of these other things, we're gonna just tap you. You know, we're not gonna come down too hard with you. I do think that that's a bad precedent to set, because I think people ought to understand that sin is sin.
That's right.
There's no doubt about that. No, it's still sin. Well, now that takes us to the next church. What about them rearing children? When I say them, I'm talking about gay.
What about
them? What do you feel about the child, the innocent newborn child?
Interesting that you say that. I've been the last few days seeing commercials.
Yes.
On TV.
Yes.
That have had same-sex couples.
Yes.
And children.
That's right.
And I immediately say, oh my God.
Yeah.
This is awful.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I'm thinking that they are corrupting a generation that is coming up.
Yes.
However, when you asked me this question, my mind thought differently. And again, I'm not justifying anything, but I thought about the parents that that the Lord gave me.
Yes.
My father has battled with his ills for my entire life. But thanks to the grace of God, my grandmother stepped in, but God stepped in.
Sure.
And I have not been affected
by
those decisions.
Sure, I understand.
And so in my mind, I think that those same children, although the world may see that they are becoming a part of a society that has no boundaries, has no structure, I think the root of that is that if these children are receiving love, that's what matters the most. The example that is being set is not a traditional example, but I, again, was raised with parents who had domestic issues.
Yes.
But I was not affected by those in a negative way.
Okay.
And so I'm just saying, I think if kids receive genuine love, that's what matters.
Okay, let's say the kid receives genuine love, and I think that's remarkable. I honestly do. I do. I have the greatest respect for that. But now let's look at this. If they're going to receive genuine love from this relationship, there will be some who will question the authenticity of that genuine love, because that love being presented in that context. So you will have some people who will say, okay, yes, Pastor, I get what you're saying, but the question is, how authentic in the sight of God can that kind of love actually be? Are we out of time?
I think we are.
Oh my goodness. All right, y'all, we'll be right back. We'll be right back. Scott, we'll be right back. Okay.
When you're in need of making the old new again with beautiful upholstery, D. Berry's Upholstery is the best, whether it's automobile interior or exterior, boats, church pews, or any residential or commercial seating and the like. Look no further. D. Berry Upholstery's got you covered. Call D. Berry's at 910-276-2265 and experience new again.
I want to give a special shout out to a young lady who's doing a marvelous work and trying to help people own their own homes. Her name is Denise Smith, Senior Loan Officer with Carrington Mortgage. Her credentials and contact information are on the screen now. Please get it and respond. They have many programs trying to help minorities and people who otherwise would not have the opportunity to own their own home. She is standing for all of us. Thank you, Denise, for all that you have done and will do for those that will be contacting you. Tell Denise, J. Gentile Everett asked you to call. Welcome back to Social Perspectives. The Reverend Gibson and I have been going at this thing, trying to make some sense of same-sex relationships, marriages, and rearing children. We last stopped off talking about what happens to the child who grows up in this kind of environment. Well, let me just say, Reverend Gibson, I want you first to make your point again, and then I will make my point. The point that you were making about even though these children may be being reared in an unusual environment, that God can lead them through all of that.
Yes, sir. So, again, I use my own life as an example. I was not birthed to the perfect parents.
Yes.
My parents had their struggles. Domestic violence played a major role in my childhood, and those social ills that my father has dealt with. I'm not perfect, but I'm blessed.
Yes.
And amidst what I've had to go through, the Lord brought me out.
Yes.
And my point is that at first I thought these children who are born or reared in same-sex marriages or relationships are going to be messed up.
Yeah.
They're going to be raised in a home with two mamas.
Yeah.
How do you explain that?
Yeah.
But then I think about my life and then other lives of kids who are raised in a house with one mama and no daddy.
Yeah.
And they're okay.
So you're talking about as long as love is
as long as love is there.
All right. So the love is what makes all the long as love is there, they'll come out okay. God will intercede wherever he feels he needs to, and everything work out.
Because he can be everything to everybody.
Yes, we've gone through that already. Yes. Okay. All right. Well, now here's the thing about what about the authenticity of that relationship actually presenting the love of God. Now, this is why I asked that question. Now, I don't know how familiar you are with Dan Brown's Da Vinci Code. It was an interesting book, and we don't have time to go through all of it, but first of all, I'm not embracing the Da Vinci Code by no stretch of the imagination. I've lectured on it, but no, I don't embrace it. But there was a couple of things he said that was interesting. And he was saying that a woman has a side of God that is presented. The feminine, the soft, the caring, the nurturing side of God is usually found in the female, the mother. The male, on the other hand, presents the masculine side of God, the one who provides, the one who protects, that sort of thing. So, the child who experiences the father and the mother has an opportunity to see two sides of God, and they're able to develop because they get to see the nurturing, loving side of God, and they see the protective and the forceful masculine side of God on this side. Now, that was not bad. I mean, I'm not, as I said, I'm not a fan, but that was an interesting concept. I have to give him credit for that. And many people will give that validity, some validity, because I mean, I don't know how to be feminine. You don't know how to be feminine. But I was blessed to have both a mother and a father, and I did see both sides as I was growing up. So there are those who will say, if you do not show the various sides of God, this equal balance of God, then how authentic could that love be?
Let me be very clear. I do believe that the ultimate plan of God is for a husband and a wife, a mother and a father to rear a
Yes,
child.
I agree with that.
Without question.
Yes.
I think that our society is made better when that happens.
Yes.
I think children are made the better when that happens.
Yes.
But we do have to be honest. In the world that we live in, that does not typically happen.
That's true.
You were blessed
Yes.
to have both of your parents.
I was.
I was blessed, but not in that same way.
Yes.
I was raised by a great-great-grandmother and her sisters.
Sure.
So I did not see the masculine side of God.
I understand.
Didn't have it.
Yeah.
But the Lord provided.
The Lord provided.
And He allowed people to come into my life who were able to impart that perspective of God for me to see.
All right, but were you also the beneficiary of having the special relationship you have with your great-great-grandmother who has special relationships with other special people? So are you saying that you two were blessed with that? I would think so.
I agree, but not to the early in my life, not to the extent that I would just say that there was a man who was there to be a surrogate father.
I
No,
understand.
men came along later
Yes.
who were able to help me with my life, but early on, they were all I had. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, I understand. All right, I'm going to tell you this then. Let's look at St. John, chapter 14, verse 6. We all know this passage. We do it at every funeral. You know, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. All right, we know that. All right, I'm going to tell you where I think we need to consider. Something we need to consider. Is God, my goodness, is God the only way?
Without question.
Or,
He should be.
all right, he should be. Or is God the best way?
He should be the only way. In my mind, the only way. But I think in the society that we live in, see, now you're taking me to a whole other place. He is probably considered the best way. And here's how I look at that.
Yes.
You know, when we all were in the world of sin and did not know Christ, we may have been in church, but we were not saved.
Yes.
That was the way.
Yes.
But when we decided to follow Christ, we decided to choose the best way.
Okay, so the best way is to have a man and a woman in the house to rear the child.
Without question.
That's the best way.
But there is another way.
There is another way.
Yes, sir.
Okay, y'all, we got to go. We're down to just a few seconds, but we got to finish this. We're gonna have to do part 3. I'm just sorry. We have to do one more. We got one more we're gonna have to do because the one thing we do need to answer. There's a question we need to answer, and that is: should the church look to the government for its structure? We have to do that.
Wonderful. I look forward to it.
Fantastic. Thank you again, Reverend Gibson. I appreciate it. It's always a joy, man, to have you. We got to have you back. You know we're going to have you back because I'm going to finish this series, but I think it's too interesting for us to just let it go. So everyone, please check out all of those who are on Gentile's preferred business list. Let's make sure that we support all of those who help us do this work. Also, we ask all of you to help us. Go to jgeverett.com. You can see the Renaissance Ministry is advertised there. Please help us continue our broadcast. Give us any gift that you would like to share. We would appreciate it. We just want to share with the world the wonderful message of love. Until next time, we'll see you later on Social Perspectives.